Great, excellent. Thank you very much, Tim, and it's good to be back. Just going through the disclaimer there. The company has got a very busy first half of 2021, and we've got two companies for the price of one with Venture Minerals. We're starting an iron ore mine, which we're now fully funded. We raised $10 million last week, hit the accounts just a couple of days ago. So we're full steam ahead and looking to get our first shipment out early Q2. We're also at the same time exploring, and we had some exciting results at Golden Grove North, just here back in WA. We got up to 7% zinc in our first round of drilling. So we're going to go back and follow up those results probably in the second half of February. We announced very early in the year trench results at Coolin of 31 metres at up to 1 gram per tonne. And we've begun our maiden drill program. So we're drilling underneath those trenches at the moment as we speak. So expect some news flow in terms of results from that shortly. And last year in July, Chalice did a joint venture with Venture on the South-West Project to earn 70% by spending $3.7 million. And they have to spend a minimum of $300,000 before July this year. So expect some news flow towards the end of this first half. Just recently, we've seen an upsurge in the tin price. It's now just hit 7-year highs. It's $23,000 per tonne. So that certainly brings back our flagship project, Mount Lindsay, which the company has completed a BFS back in 2012. So in the process of relooking at that from an underground perspective and doing a smaller, higher grade version, maybe capex around $50 million, but that certainly gives us great exposure in the EV metal and the critical mineral space. Yeah, lots to talk about, and we'll try and get as much of that as possible in the next 10 minutes. Next slide, please. Just a snapshot on the corporate side. You've seen that since July. There was an uptick in the from 2 to 4 cents for the Julimar lookalike joint venture with Chalice. And then since then, we've had a steady path upwards. We now have 1.2 million shares in issue. Our market cap is a little bit more as a consequence. It's now 76 million as of yesterday. And cash would be probably double that at the moment, thanks to the cash injection we just received from investors. So the share price has moved up nicely from, like I said, around 2 cents to around a 7 cent mark just very recently. Next slide, please. The team you got there has been started Venture Minerals back in 2006. So even though we did all the work at Mount Lindsay and Riley back up to 2012, 2013, we've still retained all that expertise in-house. And so that allows us the opportunity to get those projects back up and running, and hence where we are today with Riley. Next slide, please. Now we'll just move on to the Riley Iron Ore Mine here in the northwest of Tasmania. Next slide, please. And there's a map there showing in bold red the road access route. We're 125 kilometres from the port of Burnie is the Riley Iron Ore Mine. We're fully permitted. We've got a road agreement for the first 21 kilometres with Hydro Tasmania. We've got an access agreement to use a port at Burnie, Wharf 6, with Tasports. So we have all the permitting required. The Mount Lindsay project is drawing to attention. That is only about 15 kilometres away to the west. And there's another little iron ore project called Livingston, which is through the permitting stage of this at the moment. There's another, at least a stage 1 opportunity of another 500, 600,000 tonnes at about 59% iron, which potentially we could add to the Riley mine life at the end, depending on iron ore prices at the time. Next slide, please. The Riley mine is very simply a thin veneer draped over the landscape. It's previously logged. The bushfire went through it a couple of years ago. 1.6 million tonnes, 57% Fe. It's like the super special fines for FMG. Very, very similar product. Zero strip ratio. It's the top 1.5 metres. You see the whole ore body there on the screen. The top half metre is this loose gravel, and the next metre this cemented gravel, which we don't need any drill and blast. Next slide, please. The project, a couple of things we've done just recently. September last year, we tried a trial dry screening operation. So we've got a good idea about the mining aspects and also the costing of the dry screening. We found it as we originally designed this on a wet processing plant, a wet screening plant, we decided to move forward with that, and we've been working on constructing and completing all the civils. We awarded Cube contract to do the road haulage, so they'll be responsible from the crusher pad up to the ship's rail, and putting onto the ship at the Port of Burnie, so one-stop shop, logistics chain. And certainly, if you go back and look at our feasibility studies back in August 2019, when we pressed the button on this project for the second time, we had a $90 price. We used in that model. We got something like $30 million NPV, just under 30. And today, obviously, we're around that sort of $160 mark. So clearly a lot more than $30 million is being put out by the project at this stage. And more importantly, just recently fully funded the wet screening plant, and now the first shipment working capital is now complete, and the company can move forward to that. Next slide, please. So upcoming milestones is to finish building the plant, then commissioning, first ore haulage, where we're hopefully looking at around about that sort of late March sort of period, and first ore shipment around that sort of probably early May. So we're just finalising that at the moment. There's a picture of the concrete being laid on that slide. So it's a pretty important time for the company, exciting phase as we go from explorer through to producer. Next slide, please. Next project is the Golden Grove North project. Next slide. This we acquired back in October 2018. You know, we're close part of our 10 years, only 10 kilometres from the Golden Grove mine. We've got nearly 300 square kilometres, 25 strike kilometres of a largely untested VMS sequence. Already got historical shallow gold intersections, exciting rock chips of up to 7 grams gold, 7.6% copper, and 26 grams per tonne silver. Next slide, please. Since October 2018, we've been doing soil sampling, mapping, and I suppose ground truthing and getting a historical database together. We generated a whole bunch of new targets at Vulcan, Vulcan West, Vulcan North, and also the Neptune Prospect, which is the closest to Golden Grove. So exciting. We've got rock chips up to 23% copper in that program, and identified a gossamer at Vulcan. Next slide, please. The next phase was for us to go and do some EM and ground-based EM, and we started getting up some walk-up drill targets underneath Vulcan, Vulcan West, and Vulcan North. And then in September, we acquired the Orcus prospect, which is on the tenure and sits, as you can see on that map there, between Vulcan West and Vulcan North. So we started getting this 5 kilometre long type target zone. And the great thing about Orcus was this intersection from iron ore exploration in 2008, where we had 22 metres at 0.8 gold, 0.6 copper, and 1.3% zinc from 38 metres. So a very shallow intersection. Next slide, please. We then engaged in an RC rig, and we drilled underneath that. And there are the results. We got up to 1 metre at 7.6% zinc. So we're getting this very rich, sulfide-rich metre in the hanging wall. We've got the right geology. EM responses clearly mean sulfide. So it's been a pretty exciting drill campaign. And when we announced those results in December, we could see we've got, even albeit narrow, we've definitely got the grade, got the right host rock. And so the company is very keen to go back and drill around it. There's no drilling a kilometre to the north of this section and 300 metres to the south. Next slide, please. And then also at the same time, we were completing, we're trying to keep the ground EM ahead of the drill rig. We didn't quite achieve that, but the guys got another 6 very much stronger EM responses than when we had at Orcus, which should mean thicker accumulations of massive sulfide, which should also mean start getting those ore grade thicker intersections. So we're targeting sort of like 10 metres at 10% zinc equivalent. So we've got 1 metre, we need to get obviously multiples of that. So that drilling campaign is going to be starting in February. We'll be focusing on that. Next slide, please. Just to go on to Coolin briefly, and that'll be probably pretty much time out for me. But Coolin project, 250 kilometres east of Perth. You can see on a map there, it's in an interesting area. It's got Boddington, Australia's second largest gold mine, and then into southwest Yilgarn and Cratton. A little bit unloved. Anything sort of west of Southern Cross is not your typical, terrain like you have in Kalgoorlie and Southern Cross and Kambalda, Laverton, etc. in the eastern goldfields. It's more metamorphosed, which means it's a little bit harder to recognise, but there's definitely chrome-rich rocks there. We've got a mafic, ultramafic sequence. But what's interesting about Coolin is that BHP also discovered a Tampia mine at Narrabeen, which Explorer were taken over for Ramelius for $70 million in late 2018. We also got a BHP prospect which had a 1.5 gram gold result, but they had incoherent soil anomalies from the 1980s. We've gone back and followed up with that, and you can see from our soil results, we've got a coherent anomaly which is similar in size to Tampia. So what we did next slide please, is we decided to put some trenches in to try and work out which drill direction. There's no drill hole there for within 10 kilometres, and that was a RAB hole. So the nearest gold prospect is 50 kilometres away, so we're really much virgin country. But the trenching produced some exciting results. Trenching we did late last year. We announced that on the 8th of January, and we had 31 metres of the gram, granitic saprolite, and 20 metres at 0.6, and another trench. So the drill rig started on the 7th of January. We're drilling it at the moment, so I expect some news flow of that early next month. And next slide, and just touching on maybe even the next slide again. The project Coolin is along that metamorphic belt trend from Julimar. We did originally peg Coolin for nickel and PGE, so there's an exciting angle to that as well. And that'll do for me, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. You've sport for choice there. I suppose the question is, how do you prioritise the asset or the commodity? I mean, prices change. Iron ore looks to have worked in your favour. How do you prioritise the different commodity classes you've got?
Well, look, with the last raising, if we can, when we start generating cash from Riley, we won't have to raise again, which is an important aspect. And I think that's, if we can self-fund any exploration going forward. I think while we're going through this, constructing, building steel, pouring concrete, all that sort of phase can be a little bit boring, if you like, for investors. So we'll keep them entertained with exploration. We're very fortunate that we kind of got our timing right in terms of not only the stage of projects that they need to be drilled, but they're producing results. The market's responsive to these results. We'll, as always, let the drill bit probably guide us there. Should we get the luxury of sort of getting some exciting results, then it'll be a good problem to have. But we're not necessarily wedded to any particular commodity. The company was focused on tin and tungsten back in 10 years ago, and we spent $35 million on that asset. So, we'd rather push the advanced assets and grow the business from being a small iron ore miner to maybe being a significant tin tungsten miner. And if we make another Golden Grove or Chalice make a Julimar discovery, or we find a Boddington at Coolin, then I reckon it's a good problem to have.
And there's just a couple of questions around the timeline for iron ore shipments.
Yes, well, at this stage we're looking at that sort of around that early May is the current timing. We sort of readdressing all those timing issues at the moment. With that last bit of money, we're sort of ordering last bits of equipment that we'd sourced previously, and we're working with the suppliers at the moment to try and shortcut as much as possible. So I reckon commissioning probably the plant late March, and we'll start mining around that same time. It'll probably take 5 to 6 weeks of trucking to get that first shipment to the port.
And you've got a JV with obviously Chalice, who's an impressive partner. How active will that relationship be over the next 12 months?
Yeah, Tim, look, we didn't get to show the money shot, the two mag signatures that Chalice put out on the 21st of July last year, but the Thor anomaly down in the South-West Project in Julimar on the mag looks very, very significant. At the time, they were trading $1, Chalice were. I think they did the big breakout when they got those EM anomalies down in that southern part of their anomaly. Now, the great thing about the South-West Project at Thor, we've already done all that work. We've got 13 EM targets down the bottom 6 Ks. The northern 13 kilometres, the word EM, airborne EM, was a little bit disrupted by communication towers and power lines. So we've got to go back with ground EM. So we've got plenty of targets, and we hit massive sulfide there in one of the holes. We've only drilled 2 of those from our drilling back in late 2018. So I suppose what I'm saying is that they've got a great starting base. They don't have to do all the work they're doing at Julimar. We're kind of a little bit ahead of the curve. The difference is that we haven't hit the grade they've hit so far in their first campaign. So I expect their $300,000 they have to spend by July to you know, to maybe develop maybe new EM targets to the north, or maybe even fire a drill bit. So there's not a lot of, if you like, early stage work to do.
And just one last quick question: of the projects, what excites you the most at the moment?
Jesus, you're asking the tough questions, Tim. Look, Riley is an enabler, if you like. It's a means to end to get cash. We'll have a mining team dedicated on that. I am a mine geologist, but you know, I'm pretty excited about Golden Grove North. We seem to be ticking the boxes. It seems to be getting better all the time. But I must admit, the Cool and Trench results blew us out the water. So I'm still a little bit stuck on that one.